Hey everybody, happy Monday. We're going to be doing a quick analysis of the poem Heat It Up. So first I'll read it to you, and then after I read it to you, we will look at the elements of poetry that are present in this poem. Okay, so Heat It Up. Mrs. Tan stood in the front of our science class and assigned an experiment that we had to pass. Today we'll use peeps to make the deduction that microwaves help cause an eruption. The microwaves the microwaves will produce heat in the candy. Heat cooks the poor peeps, but this comes in handy. They'll change size and shape. Oh, yes, they will grow. Let's find out how much. Only one way to know. We'll need a few items to help complete the task. And if you need help, I am here. Please just ask. You could get dirty and make quite a mess. Wearing smocks and protective goggles is best. I put on my goggles and squinted to see the directions I should follow carefully. Use one small plastic bottle and 3 marshmallow peeps to create a peep cano with lava that seeps. Only one bottle. That's nothing, I said. I'll use 2 bigger bottles and fill those instead. 10 stuffed in each bottle will beat all the rest, the biggest peep cano that's found in the West. I crammed 10 in each bottle to cause the reaction. I followed the microwave's rotating action. Amazing! Peeps soon began to expand in the 2 gigantic bottles on the microwave pan. The marshmallows grew and took on a new shape. They stretched and they oozed. My mouth was agape. The heat made each sugary creature grow, so the heat caused the change. That was the trigger. Yet they didn't stop. Those small peeps kept on growing and burst out of their bottles with no sign of slowing. They filled up the oven and forced open the door. 20 peeps now exploded, dripping onto the floor. The candy kept melting, erupting with ease, and soon the whole class stood in peeps to their knees. I took off my goggles and started to shout, "Mrs. Tan, I'm in trouble. Please, please help me out." Mrs. Tan, with a frown, waited to my desk with a mop in her hand, and she said, "Clean up this mess. A smaller peep cano would be just as nice. Instead, you neglected to heed my advice." Sheepishly read, I cleaned up the floor and mopped up the peeps that erupted before. Our science class put back their bottles and beakers and left school quite early to put on dry sneakers. And it even gives us instructions to do exploding peeps. It says, you're going to need 3 peeps, 1 small empty plastic bottle, and microwave oven. So peeps are everywhere at this time because it's close to Easter. So this is something you should do at home. Other suggested materials, you can use goggles and smocks. And a smock is like a lab coat. Instructions: cut a few inches off the top of a plastic bottle. Okay, so you'll kind of cut off the skinny part. Fill the bottle with 3 peeps. Then place the bottle in the middle of the microwave and microwave for about 30 seconds. And it should cause like a volcano. Not gonna lie, I kind of want to try this out when I get home. Okay, let's revisit our elements of poetry and see what this poem has. The first thing that I notice about this poem is that it's a narrative poem. A narrative poem is a poem that tells a story. So when you do narrative writing pieces, you tell a story. It's the same way with poems. This is a narrative poem. It actually tells a story. It's just a story, but in rhyming form. It follows a rhyme scheme. So therefore, it makes that rhythm, and that's why it is a poem. And the first element of poetry that we're going to look at is stanzas. Does anybody remember what a stanza is? Very good. It's the paragraph of a poem. So a stanza here actually consists of 4 lines. I know that this is stanza because it has spaces, and you can see that the 4 lines go together. So this is stanza 1.
Okay. So how many 6 does it take to make the same as
it's hard to write on here. Stanza 1, and it consists of 4 lines. So instead of sentences in poems, you have lines. Yes, there are sentences within a poem, but they skip the lines to help segment. Okay? So our narrative poem tells the story of actually how to create, not necessarily how to, but the story of how this little boy created his peep volcano. And you can see right here in this image and how the image helps with the poem, helps us understand just how many peeps he thought that his volcano needed. And then this image on the next page shows us what the result of that is.
Okay, so I want you to cover
So our problem was that he filled it too high, and really our cause was that he filled it too high, and our effect was that it exploded. So we've identified our stanzas, we've identified our lines, we talked about what type of poem this is. Now we're going to look at the rhyme scheme. So in order to identify the rhyme scheme, you have to underline the last word in every stanza. So our last word in this line is class. Our last word in this line is pass. Our last word in this line is deduction. And our last word in this line is eruption. Okay, so this is different because there's more than one pair of rhyming words. Normally there's just one pair, okay, but I see two pairs of rhyming words. Class and pass rhyme, as well as deduction and eruption. So the rhyme scheme here is actually A, because we always start with A, B, B.
You have 2 of those colored in right now out of 6. Right?
That's different. We haven't done that rhyme scheme. Let's check stanza 2 just to be sure. Here's stanza 2.
2 out of 6.
The second stanza, in order to identify the rhyme scheme, underline the last word in each line.
So what fraction would that make?
So we have candy, handy, grow, know. It looks like it's going to follow that same rhyme scheme. Remember, we always start with A at the beginning of every stanza.
So 2, 6.
This one's going to be A because handy rhymes with candy. Now we have grow. Grow doesn't rhyme with handy or candy, so we go ahead and start a new letter, which is B. And then know. Know rhymes with grow, so it would be letter B. All right, stanza 3, just to be sure that this is our rhyme scheme. We'll need a few items to complete the task, and if you need help, I'm here. Please just ask. You could get dirty and make quite a mess. Wearing smocks and protective goggles is best. Ooh, I love that rhythm that it creates. I was having trouble keeping up with it, actually. So I'm going to underline task, ask, mess, best.
For it to make a whole, it would need 4.
Technically, best and mess don't rhyme. It would have to be best. But it sounds enough alike to help keep that rhythm. You'll notice in like your favorite songs, sometimes they don't rhyme the words, but they choose words that sound really similar. So it does keep that rhythm. So we're just going to pretend. Okay, so this would be A, because task and ask rhyme, and then B.
That's okay, Brad, because I know what you're saying there.
So our rhyme scheme in this poem is A.
Okay.
A,
why does it take 10
B,
copies of 1/6
B.
to make the same amount as 5 copies?
And the type of poem that this is a narrative poem. Okay, I'm going to ask you in a couple of weeks to write your own narrative poem. I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. It's really important that we read as many examples of poems and we analyze them as much as possible, because the best way to show that you understand poems is for you to write a poem. I can't wait to continue to analyze poems together. I hope that you learned a little bit more about rhyme schemes, stanzas, lines, and types of poems. Have a great Monday.